Dear audience, my name is Flesland, and I'm product and process developer at Pelagia's feed division. As the title indicates, this is development beyond today's fish meal, and I'm happy to present some of this innovation from Pelagia, verified by feeding trials in close collaboration with Skretting. And May-Helen, Holme will present results from the feeding trials just after me. It's a teamwork, and I'd like to acknowledge Vibeke Vikesø and May-Helen Holme, and my colleagues Dag Gjerde and Anders Aksnes for their key contributions. So, why is fish meal still an important ingredient in fish feed? It offers natural nutrients profile tailored for fish, and it contains unique nutrients not found in plant-based ingredients. And the limited and volatile raw material availability, along with certification demands, require efficient and sustainable use. And the objective of this study has been to evaluate if this new fish meal, how this new fish meal affects growth and robustness in Atlantic salmon and in sea bass. So we have developed a fish meal concept targeting increased growth, more robust fish, and better handling of stress, and we named it Pro-Allo, which refers to allostasis. And the concept is built on 3 pillars. First of all, it has to be made from fresh raw materials, and we have strict specifications about today's standard. And it has to be gently processed for keeping the protein digestibility. And this flow sheet here just simplified the fish meal process, and also indicating, I want to highlight especially the drying process at the end that has to be as gentle as possible. Here shown the 2-step drying that we used for LT fish meal to keep the digestibility. Number 3 is the high concentration of the water-soluble nitrogen compounds like peptides and free amino acids. And you can find more details in the white paper we have on our website. And the elevated levels of water-soluble nitrogen compounds are the key innovation here. And this is what sets Pro-Allo apart from traditional LT fish meal and drives improved performance in aquafeed. And this figure here shows the change in concentration of the water-solubles within the water-soluble protein. And on the left is today's high-quality fish meal called LT fish meal of group 1. And on the right is the next generation fish meal, as we call it. And the most pronounced is the increase in free amino acids and peptides marked in green. So we built on many years of R&D and experience, but the proof is in the pudding. Always claimed effects have to be verified by customers, always, especially at low inclusion. So therefore I'm pleased to hand over to May-Helen Holme, Innovation Director, Salmon in Skretting, who will present the results from the feeding trials.
Thank you. I'm actually quite excited to be able to present these results because, as Ola said, the proof is in the pudding, and fish, the ultimate test is obviously when you give it to the fish, and then you see how that affects growth performance. So there was a lot of results here, and we're just going to give you a snapshot of what we saw when we gave this first feeding Atlantic salmon. So this design was set up with 3 different fish meals. So Pro-Allo, as you just have heard, is the next level fish meal. Then we have two commercial types, group 1 and group 2, which refers to LT and NSM. This was included in two different inclusion levels in the diets, at 50% and at 15%. So these are commercially relevant formulations. And the trials, they were run at our own research station at Lerang under commercial conditions. So these are first feeding fish, and the reason why we use that is that they're super sensitive to fish meal or raw material quality. And you will see very quickly an effect. Trial was run at 12 degrees and fresh water flow through 250 fish per tank and 3 tanks per treatment. Then the trial was run for 90 days. So a lot happening here, but I'll try to guide you through it. So here you see the body weight over 90 days, the weight development. And you see in the solid lines that represent the high inclusion diets. And the dotted lines, that's the 15% diets. And the very obvious trend is that we see for both of these inclusion levels, the very high fish meal quality. Pro-allo gave the best feed intake and the best weight development right from the beginning. You can also see that there is a lower growth with the lower fish meal inclusion, as expected. These are quite dramatic inclusion levels. 15 and 50 is a big difference there. But if we zoom in, so that's the overall trial. But if we zoom in on 19 days, that's what we see over here. And it's quite significant that already after 19 days, we see a very clear effect on growth. So there is a significant difference. And if you see for the low inclusion group, it's 13% difference in growth already at such an early stage. And that difference at such a young age, that has a very strong cumulative effect when the fish grows through a whole life cycle. And then when we look at the same trial, but look at the final body weights, you can see the trends are very, very obvious. Same trend, slightly lower growth with 15% versus the high inclusion. But even more interesting, and this is what we were trying to develop and look into during the trial, is this one. If you replace the fish meal inclusion with the better quality, can you then go down an inclusion level? And here you see there is no significant difference between using a group 2 fish meal at 50% inclusion and a Pro-allo at 15% inclusion. And that gives quite a lot of space in the recipe for using other raw materials or having the flexibility to be more, to include new raw materials and to react on the raw material market. And we did exactly the same with sea bass, or very much the same. This was run at Simar in Portugal. Here, only 2 fish meal groups were used, group 1 and Pro-allo at 2 different inclusion levels, 10 and 25. This was also commercial conditions, slightly bigger fish, and run for 63 days. And you see here very similar trend. This is here we're looking at feed intake, and you can see right from the first day of feeding, there was effect of fish meal quality. And that obviously, just the effect of that just became more and more clear as the trial went on. And again, this is quite interesting, for this is looking at the feed conversion rate. Here you see that at low inclusion, there is a very, very strong effect on FCR by using a higher quality meal. And lastly, here we see on the final body weight, specifically at low inclusion, extremely important to use the right quality in order to not lose any performance when you go down in inclusion. So very consistent results across these 2 species. So what does all of this tell us? First and foremost, I think it's very clear that paying attention to how you treat the raw material has a very clear effect on the fish performance. So preserving the nutrients through the processing that Ola was referring to affects feed intake and growth. And then we also see that we're talking about sustainability and developing next level generation of raw materials, there is a very, very high value in the marine resources. So we got to make sure that we maintain that value from the fish is caught until it actually ends up in the diet, because there's so many things that can happen to that fish meal that reduce the potent value that's in it. So this gives us, as I mentioned, an extreme flexibility when we move into more precise nutrition and develop tomorrow's feeds. And as both Pelagia and Skretting has very high focus on, is that this cannot be done by one part of the value chain alone. Pelagia can develop this, but they don't know how well it works before they have somewhere to test it. And we in Skretting, we need someone to really push ahead and develop the new raw material. So this collaboration, I think, is essential. We've tried for a long time to sit in silos and do this, but this is proving to be a much more efficient way of working, and we really encourage more of that throughout the industry. And the last one here, future directions. The next now will be to look at the effect this has on fish health, the robustness and the immune response in the fish. These bioactive peptides that is boosted in the pro-alloy has clearly an effect on feed intake and growth. There's also really strong indications that affects the immune response in the fish. So that's the exciting next step. So that's all we had for you now, but watch the space. There is quite a lot of interesting developments with marine raw materials these days. So I think we're going to see a much better utilization of both whole fish, but also the trimmings going forward. Thank you.
Any questions from the audience? Yes, please.
Hi. Yeah. Thank you so much for your presentation. Quite interesting results. I just wanted to understand a little bit better when you say sustainable marine ingredients in this new fish meal ingredient. Can you explain a little bit better, since we hear so much about new marine ingredients and we can use side streams to produce even low trophic marine species, like we heard in the previous presentation, and then now we talk about fish meal. I would just wanted to understand how, when we speak about sustainability, what does that mean?
Yeah, it's an extremely good question. One thing that is super clear from this research is that you can lose a lot of the value that is in wild fishery if you don't treat it right. If you don't maintain the freshness of the raw material, if you overcook it, over-dry it, then a lot of the value is lost right away. So I think that is a natural first step to look at how are we actually preserving the marine resources that we choose to catch. And the other thing is there is a lot of work on certification programs. The fishery improvement projects, as you probably have heard of, which is working very hard to try and quantify how much fish can we take out of the oceans at a sustainable level. And overfishing has obviously been something that the industry has been blamed for, and there is still some of that going on. So we need to be responsible buyers. We need to set criteria to our suppliers again. And again, it's a value chain collaboration to make sure that we put pressure on the right instances, and also give good incentives for the primary producers or the fisheries to actually do the right thing, and we actually pay them to do that. So I think that's the basis. But then also there is a lot of new products now coming from trimmings, both in fish, salmon oil. There is a lot of hydrolysates being developed, which is next level. There has been hydrolysates for a long time, but through working with the industry and the end user, I think we are seeing a lot of new, much better products coming to the market right now.
Thanks. We still have time for another question.
Hi.
Yes, please.
Hi, thank you for a great presentation. I'm Katrine Five from NTNU and Nutrimar. I was wondering first about the processing of to make the fish meal. Is there a reason why you separate the stick water out and partly dry it before you then mix it with the press cake again to make the fish meal? And the second one is, what kind of chemical analysis have you done on this new fish meal that makes it so good?
I can give you a short answer. Ola, do you want to? Yeah. No. The reason why it's the fish, when it comes in, it's cooked and then it's separated into 3 fractions. The oil goes to one side, then you have the press cake, and then you have the stick water. The reason why the stick water is taken out is it needs to be evaporated. So there's a lot of water-soluble proteins in it that is super important, we know now, to maintain. But there is so much water. So in order to save cost in drying the meal, a lot of that water is removed first, and then it's put back to the press cake, and that makes a whole fish meal. So you preserve all the nutrients except from the oils that's reduced, taken out for other uses. Is that? Yeah, you agree?
Yeah, that's right. So it's purely energy efficiency to evaporate by concentrate by evaporation instead of drying. So, yeah.
And then you asked what chemical analysis were performed.
Yes, of the fish meal. So do you know why it works so well compared to other fish meals?
I showed the relative concentrations of the water-soluble part, and we have done a lot of analysis on it, but we know it's an effect of the water-soluble. It could be 3 amino acids or peptides, or we don't know exactly. We don't think it's only one amino acid that's responsible for this. So that's some future work here.
So the water-soluble fraction contains a lot of shorter peptide chains, and quite a lot of them are bioactive, which means that when you analyze them, they have one form, but when they come into the body and the body start breaking it down, then it becomes a different peptide, and that's when it becomes active, and that's why it's called bioactive. And for humans, that's got a lot of very important functions. It lowers blood pressure, it's good for immune systems, it works as an antioxidant in the body. And that's why it's a bit difficult to analyze it, because what you analyze is not the same component that's active in the body once it goes through the metabolism. It's a little bit like fermented products. You've probably read a lot about that having a very positive effects on humans. And that's also because some of that breakdown has happened in the fermentation process. So a lot of the analysis has been on that water-soluble fraction specifically. All right?
I have a question, actually.
Yeah, sure.
Sorry. I know fish fry requires very high-quality fish meal, but it's very interesting to see the differences, the big differences in the growth. When you replace the fish meal using Pro Aloe, did you balance the rest of the diet, like the energy, the minerals, the vitamins?
Very good question, and actually a very good point that these fish meals that we compared it to Group 1 and Group 2 are very good fish meals. Group 1 is today the highest standard we have commercially. So it's a pretty tough comparison we put it through. So the proximate composition, the fat, the protein, etc., of these meals are very similar. So we did balance the diets for protein and fat and the normal components. What we didn't balance for was this water-soluble fraction.
Okay, thanks. Okay, thank you.
Cool, thanks.